everyone, and welcome to episode 36 of the Dump and Chase podcast. The Phantoms finally played home games at the Covelli Centre, the first ones in 272 days. We'll look back on those, break down the Covelli experience in the age of COVID, and look ahead to a 3-game weekend with the Chicago Steel. My name is Sam Olmstead, and I am joined by my co-host, who has been in a very good mood since Saturday night. Let's hope it carries through to this episode, Mr. Justin Irwin.
Oh, yeah, we're finally getting back to playing some hockey at home, and I don't know, I guess vodka's carried me through since then.
I'm going to start recommending you for meetings. This is starting to get a little out of hand, and the fact you're so publicly willing to admit it scares me even more. Okay. So this past weekend, the Muskegon Lumberjacks came to town. The name of the game for the Phantoms was going to be roster management. Who's in, who's out, who's called up, and who's called back. Going into the game on Friday night, the Phantoms had 12 players scratched. This led to 3 affiliate call-ups, who we will get to a little later on in the episode. The big story was the return of former Phantom alumnus Jack Malone. Between the 17-18 season and the 18-19 season, he put up 73 points in 109 games for the Phantoms. He spent last season at Cornell University putting up 8 points in 27 games as a freshman. With the Ivy League canceling fall and winter sports, Jack was allowed to come back to Youngstown. Whether this is short-term or long-term, we don't know, but we're more than happy to have him for whatever amount of time he's here.
Kind of a cerebral player, always thinking ahead of the game. Great setup man. He's been one of my favorites kind of since he played an affiliate game up in Plymouth, scored a pretty nice goal. Definitely good timing coming back, too. We really needed the help.
So let's get to the actual game itself. I will preface all of this by saying that we understand that there was little to no ice time for players the past couple weeks, and that accounted for a lot of the shortcomings Friday and Saturday. With that being said, Friday night on the offensive side of the puck, the Phantoms didn't look comfortable at all. No real sustained pressure on offense. Anytime they got through the neutral zone, it was more luck than skill. When it was all said and done, they only managed 13 shots on goal. The only one that went in was off the stick of Riley Funk in the second period, after a turnover by the Jacks in their defensive zone. This tied the game at 1 at that point, coming after the Jacks took an early 1-0 lead early in the first. Defensively, it's strange to say that the Phantoms played a good defensive game when they give up 38 shots, but that strangely was the case. They were able to hold off the USHL's highest scoring team for most of the game, notably on the shoulders of goalie Matthias Scholl, who was incredible in goal the entire game. But as with the previous 2 losses, the Jacks got the go-ahead goal with less than 3 minutes remaining in the game and added an empty netter for good measure. Phantoms lose 3-1. Is there anything in all that I missed?
Nope, that's pretty much it. The offense just could not get started. The Jacks, they clogged it up in the neutral zone pretty good. No transition. We did kind of a good job limiting some of the, worst of it, but yeah, all said and done, Scholl stood on his head. A couple of just amazing saves in the second period. But yeah, without some sort of offense in front of you, it was pretty much, I hate to say it, a wasted effort.
So moving on to Saturday, a couple players came off the scratch report, starting with Cade Lemmer. Hey kids, remember Cade Lemmer? He got a 5-minute major for head contact 5 minutes into the first game of the season, which was a month ago, for a horribly called head contact penalty. Go back and look at the video. It was a really bad call. He was suspended 3 games. Well, 7 of the Phantoms' next 9 games were postponed, so the third and final game of his suspension was served on Friday, almost a month later. He returned to the lineup Saturday. We'll have more about that in a little bit. We also saw the surprise return of Ben Schoen. I say surprise because, according to sources, Ben was set to return this weekend in Chicago. Apparently, Ben had other plans and came back a game early. An injury early in training camp has kept him out until now, and coming back Saturday, I'd say he got his legs under him pretty quick.
Yeah, much to Muskegon's dismay.
The game Saturday started much like Friday. The offense was stagnant. but the defense was able to clamp down on the Jacks, holding them to only 5 shots in the period. Second period, things began to change. Passes were tape to tape. They were crisp. The zone entries were cleaner. They were getting shots on goal. The Jacks went up early in the second and held the lead until Cole Birch put in his 4th of the season late in the period with some very pretty passing by Jack Malone and Georgi Merkulov. Now, Muskegon would regain the lead early in the third before Ben Schoen got a good redirect on the power play for his 1st of the season. Didn't waste any time. 2 minutes later, Ben would put the Phantoms up 3-2 after taking a pass from Malone on a 2-on-1 break and shooting high on a sprawled out Christian Stover. The Jacks pulled Stover in the final 2 minutes for the extra man and ended up tying the game with about 48 seconds left. In overtime, the Phantoms controlled the play for most of the 5 minutes, including Schoen getting the hat trick on another 2-on-1 break with Malone. With about 3.7 seconds left, Phantoms win 4-3. Yeah, if you're going to come back and make a statement, I think Ben Schoen pretty much put his stamp on that game.
Definitely. You could kind of see it starting to materialize, like you said, in the second period. Merkulov, Malone, Schoen, these guys were starting to really kind of stretch the Jacks defense then. Yeah, and then Ben Schoen has been cooped up a little too long, especially after the injuries last season. I think he really wanted to get out there and play some hockey. Was just a thing of beauty, especially on that last goal.
So, of course, the best part of this weekend was finally getting to see the team in person. Usually we get to see them in training camp, exhibition games, stuff like that. We weren't able to get any of that. They've been on the road. So finally, we get to see them with our own eyes. The first thing I would bring up that probably stood out was the play and the styles of goalies Matthias Scholl and Kyle Chalvet.
Yeah, 2 similar goalies in the fact that they're not the traditional 6'4" monsters that we're used to in net. What we've seen the last few seasons for the Phantoms, you know, they both kind of come in at 5'10", 5'11", especially Chalvet. Yeah, he's 5'10", 150, and Scholl is 5'11", 175. Not what you would call a small guy, but in terms of netminders, this is, you know, definitely on the smaller side. What we saw, Scholl definitely makes up with athleticism. He was outside of the crease, down, back up, side to side, as quick as anybody, skating, agility, and a quick glove. We saw that in the second period. Chalvet, he's smaller, but seems more positionally sound. He gets set quick, pretty confident, a little bit different style, but pretty similar results. They kept a lot of the really tough shots out, so I think most of the difference was on the offensive side. So it'll be interesting to see going down the road, especially with, you know, Colin Purcell on the scratch list. We'll see how that plays out.
I would think Brad would kind of appreciate the smaller size too, where he can talk to his goalies and it doesn't involve a neck cramp.
Yeah, we've taken some pictures, taken some liberties, but yeah, you know, he's not kind of staring into the logo.
Well, last season, right away we saw the skill and just sheer brilliance of Georgi Merkulov on the ice. Seeing him this weekend, it really looked like he kicked that up a few notches in the offseason. He was one of the few high points on Friday, and Saturday, most of the time, it looked like he was just toying with Lumberjack defenders.
Yeah, I mean, watching this guy skate is worth the price of admission.
Another player I wanted to mention was Cade Lemmer. We were rough on Cade last season, and quite frankly, I stand by that. There were, I dare to say, maturity issues last season and just pretty much undisciplined most of the time. In the shift or two in Dubuque last month before referee Helen Keller in the USHL dropped the hammer on him, we saw a different Cade. Disciplined, steady, and, most of all, contributing. Saturday night, his improvement from last season was more than obvious. His positioning was good. He was making good decisions with the puck. He played solid defense when it was called for. As rough as our take on him was last year, I'm equally, if not more, impressed with what I've seen so far from him this year.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, that the hit in Dubuque, that was a legal hit. That was everything you want to see a player do. Shoulder to shoulder, separating player from puck. Yeah, I mean, this year he's leaner. He's ahead of the play instead of behind it this year. So that's what we want to see now. If he can just kind of get to the front of the net, cause some havoc there. Some of the shots we took at him last year, I think was kind of because we expected more. We're kind of expected to see what we were seeing this year. So we're glad to glad to see him contributing.
The last bit I'll bring up about the lineup, which, for the most part this weekend was a patchwork lineup. The Phantoms made 3 call-ups, bringing in affiliates Ocean Wallace and Quinn Kennedy, both forwards, and defenseman Michael Rubin. Being pressed into service and filling in right away, how did you feel about their weekend?
All 3, definitely, I give passing marks. None of them really looked uncomfortable, outside of, what we saw with everybody on Friday. Wallace, I can see why his name is Ocean, because he is big, skates well, seemed to make good plays. Quinn Kennedy, likewise, I noticed he was pretty aggressive on the forecheck, seemed to have his head up, kind of like to see him play a little bit more. Michael Rubin as a defenseman, I'd like to say I didn't notice him a lot as a affiliate defenseman. I think that's a good thing. No mistakes, played solid defense.
Going through the pandemic, going through COVID-19, you have phrases that people just kind of hate hearing anymore, including pandemic and COVID-19. Another phrase people hate to hear anymore is the new normal. Unfortunately, we're not clever enough to think up any other way to describe it. So yeah, coming into this weekend, as far as the new normal of what the Covelli Centre experience will be going to games, we'll break this down a little bit, but I'll just say overall, I think they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, especially Friday, I felt comfortable. It wasn't as abnormal as I thought it would be, other than some of the distancing, having people's seats moved. I mean, it felt like a hockey game. It was a little bbit different.
I mean, you heard some complaints kind of going into it about, with like, oh, how can you go to a game and all that with the social distancing and blah, 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 and this and that. And it's like, I'm trying to think back and remember all the times before COVID when we would all just stand out in the concourse and spit on each other. That, we had to stop doing stuff like that. All the straws and the drinks that we all shared with each other and everything else that we apparently had to stop doing that we were doing before. But no, in all seriousness, the masks, I mean, everything was good there. You kind of had a few bad actors throughout the game who had to be told several times, pull your mask up. Seating wise, both games, the Phantoms averaged probably a little over 500 for both games.
I think it was around 500, 450 for the first night, 550 for the second night, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I guess the Phantoms had gotten a variance from the governor as far as allowing 1,500 people into the arena.
Which is about 30% capacity, something like that.
So they were able to pull about a third of that, which honestly, I think for what was going to be, a trial run, but at the same time, a trial by fire, I think maybe the smaller crowds this past weekend was a benefit. It gave everybody a little better chance to kind of establish how everything was going to go, kind of made things a little bit easier on everybody. I would have thought if there would have been 1,500 right out of the gate, this weekend could have been a lot worse off.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. Yeah, security had to intervene a little bit more on Saturday with Dollar Beer Night. We won't mention anybody in their pink shorts. But yeah.
Wait, did you say pink shorts?
Yes.
Pink shorts.
Pink shorts, yes.
So if you were in the arena, what you're saying is if you were in the arena and you were wearing pink shorts, you were probably causing a little bit of a problem.
Yeah. I think you got told several times on Saturday, and then you missed a really good ending.
Yeah, really.
So, that's all I'll say. But yeah, Friday night.
But again, only if you're wearing pink shorts. This only if you were someone in the arena wearing pink shorts. This applies to you.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Friday night was, uneventful. I felt safer at the Covelli Centre than I do at Giant Eagle. And I'm not being facetious here. I saw, less people not wearing masks than I do most of the time when I go to a grocery store. The staff did a wonderful job of keeping everybody apart. Saturday night was dollar beer night. Obviously, there were going to be some challenges. Yeah, if there had been 3 times that many people, I don't think it could have happened. I think that gave security a little bit of chance to prove that they could handle it. It was kind of a back and forth, and security eventually won.
Well, that's the thing I think people need to realize. You're going to have like representatives from the health department there. They're going to be watching what's going on. The more we're on our best behavior, the better off we'll be in the long run. 99.9% of the people at these games, they were respecting the social distancing protocols. They were wearing their masks. Concession stand was set up a little different. Instead of everybody just kind of corralling into one area, there was a designated line. There was designated spots to stand. Everybody was following that. A couple times, 2 or 3 times, I went to the concession stand. I didn't see any issues there. So people had no problem following that. Yeah, and like you said, at no point this weekend, did I feel like I was in an unsafe situation. Did I feel like these people are too close, these people aren't listening, everybody, people are going rogue? I felt none of that. And if somebody stepped out of line, security was right there. The ushers were right there. They were on top of it. They were taking care of it. To the Phantoms organization, to the Covelli Centre staff, for being the first weekend, I can't really see how they could have done it much better.
Yeah. I'm sure going forward there will be things that need to be worked out, but all in all, this weekend was how it had to be. That's the only way to say it is this is how you had to do it, and that's how they did it. So maybe we can take it up a little bit more, attendance wise going forward. We'll see.
Okay, so now looking ahead to this weekend, the Phantoms will travel to Chicago for 3 games in 3 days with the Steel. The game on Thursday will be an early game starting at 3:05 our time. The Friday and Saturday games both start at 8:05 our time. All will be available on Hockey TV, and the radio broadcast will be available for free on Mixler, whatever it's called.
That radio app.
That radio app. I will put out a link on Thursday for that for anybody who needs it or doesn't know where to look for it. The nice thing will be on this little mini 3-game road trip, it'll be the Steel's Mark Citron on the call, one of the more highly respected broadcasters in this league. So definitely nothing along the lines of a Madison or Green Bay we'll have to put up with. Never enjoy playing the Steel, but I do enjoy listening to his calls. So at least if anything, we'll have that to look forward to this weekend. So going to Chicago, what will the Phantoms be looking at as far as Ryan Hardy and the boys?
Well, fortunately, a lot of those names that we hated to hear last year are gone this year. Unfortunately, they still have a good bit of talent, especially on offense. Their defense, still pretty good, and a couple of goalies that they really don't have a lot of data on. So we'll have to see. Kind of the same as last year, just different names.
So as we wind down this episode, it's once again time for another segment of Ask Justin. So this week, Justin's question comes from Phantom superfan Teddy Zamuda, who we actually got to do a Zoom fan chat with during the summer, back when people still liked Zoom. Not so much now. So I couldn't do this without mentioning little Teddy as well, when we did that chat, he claimed he had about 100 questions for us until he saw what we actually looked like and took off running through a field screaming. Seeing as that I saw him at the games this weekend, I guess they did finally find him. So always good to know. So Justin, Teddy wants to know, in your opinion, who on last year's roster do you think has the best chance to end up in the NHL?
From last year's roster, I guess I'm going to go with a guy who's probably still on this year's roster. I'm going with Merkulov. It's not because of his talent, even though what we've seen, that's incredible. I think he's got the ambition. The way he just shows up, calls up the team, or his agent calls up the team, goes, hey, yeah, can you give this kid a shot? He comes over from Russia, not speaking a lick of English. Pretty much next week, he's starting in a game, scores a couple of goals. Work ethic is incredible. Kind of seen what his off season was. So, yeah, I think he has the mindset, and obviously he's got the skill set.
It kind of follows that Kiefer Sherwood path where he just kind of appears on the roster one day out of nowhere. You have no clue who this kid is. Comes in, lights up the league.
Yeah, I mean, Sherwood was kind of a not local, but Columbus area youth. But comes in, works hard, makes a team. Georgie might not be drafted, but like Sherwood, there's plenty of other routes to get there.
Okay, so with that, we are at the end of this show. As always, thank you for tuning in. We do this show for you as much as we do it for ourselves. If you have any suggestions for topics on future episodes, or if you want Justin to answer your questions in an episode, drop us a line. The Dump and Chase podcast is brought to you by hockeyfan.com. You can also find our episodes and Justin's blogs on ohiohockeydigest.com. And I believe your preview article from last week was one of OHD's featured articles on Friday. So congrats there if I haven't said anything about that yet.
Yeah, well, when there's not that much coverage out there, that's what happens.
Always humble. Always humble. A lot more than I am, apparently. Yeah, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. The links will be in the description. So for Justin Irwin, I'm Sam Olmstead. Thanks for giving us a listen, and we'll talk with you next week.
This is the part where I got to come up with something for the outro.
Yeah. It's got to be clever, funny, witty, all that stuff. Go.
I've got nothing.